Hey, good morning. Happy Monday to everyone that's going to be jumping on, or good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're going to see this video. This morning, we're going to be talking about Joshua 13 this morning, and I'm going to be coming from the topic, I was born for this very reason. And this is, if you follow me if you follow me on this page, then you know this is something that I've been talking about for the past couple weeks, which is that hashtag I was born for this, hashtag I was born for this, hashtag I was born for this. And so a lot of my posts, you'll see I'll say hashtag I was born for this. This was something actually a couple of months ago that God, as I was studying, he gave me. He was like, a lot of stuff when I was reading, he was like, that ultimately signifies purpose. It signifies assignments. And so, good morning, Tiff. And so this morning we're going to be doing Joshua 13. I don't think the devotion is going to be that long, but I do think it's going to be a really good devotion about purpose and assignments. And sometimes what I've seen is that people confuse the two. And so some people believe their purpose is an assignment, and some people believe their assignment is a purpose. And so I'm going to separate the two this morning, and I'm going to talk about that. So again, we're coming out of Joshua 13. We're going to be talking about I was born for this. If you follow me last week, on last Monday, we talked about Joshua 12, which was Joshua defeated. He's in the land of Canaan now. He defeated the southern and the northern territories. And there were still some territories that Joshua did not defeat. But last week, we talked about how God quickly allowed Joshua to defeat the southern. And then when he gets into the northern, he's defeating a good amount of those kings very quickly. And then it took time to defeat the rest of those kings, which leads us to Joshua 13. Let me say this just for history. So when we jump into Joshua 13, a lot has passed. So a lot of time has passed. And so if you're following me, it's going to seem like overnight Joshua is now old. But let me just say, from a historical content, from Joshua 12 to Joshua 13, a lot of time has passed. And so let's jump in. We're going to be Joshua 13. I'm going to read verses 1 through 7, and I am coming out of the NLT today. And so it says, when Joshua was an old man, the Lord said to him, "You are growing old, and much of the land remains to..." The word just is good. It says, when Joshua was old, the Lord said to him, "You are growing old, and much land remains to be conquered." So verse 1 is super important. God is saying, Joshua, you have a purpose, and attached to your purpose is an assignment. So Joshua had a purpose, bring the children of Israel into the land of Canaan, but then there were many assignments that were tied into Joshua's purpose. And so though Joshua is old, God is like, look, you still have some assignments that you ain't finished. And so I don't care, Joshua, that you are old. There's still some assignments that you have to finish. So that's verse 1. Joshua 13, now we're in verse 2. It says, this is the territory that remains, all the regions of the Philistines and the Geshurites and the larger territory of the Canaanites, extending from the stream of Shihor into the border of Egypt. So God just starts listing all of this land that Joshua still has not conquered. We're going to jump down to verse 6, and it says, "And I myself would drive these people out of the land of the Israelites. So be sure to give this land to Israel as a special possession, just as I have commanded you. Include all this territory as Israel's possession when you divide this land among the 9 tribes and the half tribe of Manasseh." So I want to stop right there. So again, we're talking about hashtag I was born for this, Joshua 13 this morning. So we see here in Joshua 1 through 7, a lot of time has passed between Joshua 12 and Joshua 13. Now, all of a sudden, God is back on the scene. Joshua is in his 90s. So if you guys have been following me from Joshua 1 all the way now into Joshua 13, when Joshua first comes into the land of Canaan, he is a young man. And so he's full of zeal. He's just obeying God. He's doing what God is saying. And now we're in Joshua 13, and he is an old man. He is in his 90s. And the Bible says there is still yet a lot of land, Joshua, that you ain't conquered. Why is that important? Because remember what I said when we started Joshua is that God gave Joshua a purpose. That purpose was to get the children of Israel into the land of Canaan. Why was that important? Because Moses had the same purpose, which was to deliver them from Egypt and then take them into the land of Canaan, which was the promised land that God had promised them. Moses failed. We know that because Moses, there's multiple things in the wilderness, and I'm not going to go in that, where he did not get the children of Israel, and even got to a point where he only saw it, but he didn't get to enter it. And so we now are in Joshua 13. A lot of time has passed, and now God is saying to Joshua, and I want to say this to anyone that is older, God is telling Joshua, now that he's in his 90s, you still have some assignments to do that you have not done. And so yes, you've gotten the children of Israel into the promised land, Joshua. That's great. But there's still assignments that you have not completed. Why is that so important? Because it signifies to me that when we are born, we have a purpose. Attached to that purpose is multiple assignments. A lot of people that I encounter, they're in dissatisfied places. Most of that comes because they're not operating in purpose. So they don't understand why they were created. And then attached to that purpose, they don't understand the assignments. So you don't know the assignments because first you have to get the purpose. And so we see with Joshua is that his purpose was take these children of Israel, regardless of the way they are, into the promised land. Now that you're in the promised land, there are multiple assignments. And we know that because when he gets into the promised land, God says, drive out these inhabitants, drive them out. And so we saw that part of Israel's problem was they get in the land and they start wanting to mingle with the people. And God is like, stop mingling when I told you to drive them out. That was a part of the assignment. So the assignment was drive the people. That was one of them. Drive the people out of the land. And so now Joshua is in his 90s and God has not forgotten about the assignments that he gave Joshua to do. Point number one, let me say this, is that you must fulfill the purpose in which God put you in the earth to do. Every single person has a purpose. Every single person has a purpose. Every single person has a purpose. Angela, you said, I can't see or hear anything. Does everybody else hear me? I know there's multiple people on. Does everyone else hear me? Because it shows my volume is up. So is anybody else having any issues hearing me? If not, then I'm gonna keep going. If you do, just comment and then I'll switch some things up. But every single person, okay, cool. Thanks, Dion. And good morning to all you guys that have jumped on. The first point is that every single person has a fulfillment. Okay, thanks, Tiff. Every single person has a purpose and we must fulfill that purpose. I believe this is me personally, it's biblical. We have a purpose. Attached to that purpose is multiple assignments. And so if you have a child, then a part of your assignment or your role is you are a mother. That is not your sole existence. That's not your sole purpose. And sometimes people mix that up and they're like, well, I was just born to be a mother. No. I was born to just be a father. No. You have a purpose. There is a reason, a specific reason why God created you and put you in this earth. And so let me explain that through a definition that God gave me. He says a purpose is specifically the reason that God created you and put you in the earth. It is something that you specifically are called to do. And so that's purpose. So if you're looking, saying, okay, what is my purpose? That's purpose. Often I'll say this about purpose, and I wrote it in my notes because a lot of people try to paint the super pretty picture. Purpose often brings fulfillment. So a lot of times when we're dissatisfied, it's because, again, we've lost focus off of our purpose. We're not operating in purpose. So purpose brings fulfillment. It brings joy. But let me also say this, because I like to hit the truth too. Purpose often brings pain. It often is burdensome. Most people who are operating in purpose, it is burdensome. It is weighty. It could be a lot. Often when I look at my purpose, I'm kind of like, how in the world am I going to do all of that you called me to do? But that's what goes with it. I feel feel like you cannot truly operate in purpose as a believer without God, because he's the one who created you. And so when he looks at you, he knows, and let me say this, he knows the capacity of you. So he knows how much you can handle. And so a lot of times when we look at purpose, it's like, there's no way I can do everything that you're saying you've called me to do in the earth. And God knows your capacity because he created you. And so when we look at purpose, it is something you were specifically created to do in the earth. If you don't know that and you just got a job and you just kind of out there wondering, then I would venture to say you're probably dissatisfied a lot. And there is always this, like, I just believe there's more I should be doing, right? Because you were created for a specific purpose, and you have to seek God for that. Attached to purpose is assignments. And so let me give you the definition for assignments this morning. Multiple tasks that you are given while you are in the earth, or roles, different roles God gives you while you are in the earth, that always tie back into purpose. Always tie back into purpose. And so if you have an assignment and it don't tie back into your purpose, then I would venture to say that's not an assignment that God gave you. Your assignments should tie back into your purpose. Example, I am called to preach, to teach the gospel. I know that. I have accepted that as my purpose. I am a messenger on behalf of God. It's not about me. It's all about him. But I cannot turn around and say my assignment is to turn around and hit up all the clubs around the world. That doesn't really tie into my purpose. That I can't say God just assigned me to just go kick it at all these clubs and dance and do all this stuff. No. That doesn't tie into my purpose. Whatever you got going on is your thing. I'm saying specifically for me, that does not tie into my purpose. And so your assignment should tie back into your purpose. And so again, that could be multiple things. I know a lot of people that look at their job as, that's just my purpose in the earth. No, a lot of times your job is an assignment, unless it is something that specifically is your purpose. But most of the time when we look at like a job, it is an assignment. There's a reason you're there. Seek the Lord as to why you're there and what he's calling you to do on that job, or what you need to be receiving. And so let me just say that again for people who are jumping on. Every single person has a purpose. Your purpose should bring fulfillment. If you are dissatisfied, I would say you're probably not operating in purpose. Attached to your purpose is multiple assignments. And so I have a good friend, she's called to sing. And so attached to that is multiple assignments that goes with that purpose. And so again, we all have a purpose. Attached to our purpose is multiple assignments. In this text, we see God tells Joshua, yay, bro, it's great. You are in the land, but there are multiple assignments that you have yet to fulfill. One of them being, you did not conquer the land. There is still, God even uses the word, there is a lot of land yet to be conquered. And if you track, what will happen is, and I'm not going to get into this, but what will happen is David is actually the one that ends up conquering the rest of the land, when really it was Joshua. God gave that to Joshua, but that's what happens. Listen to me, because a lot of people don't teach this, but I'm going to teach it because it's Bible. A lot of times when it comes to God and what he's trying to do in the earth, if you do not do it, if you kind of like, whatever, I don't want to do it, God is that type of God. He will raise somebody else up and be like, he's not limited to you. And so what he'll do is he'll raise somebody else up, and what we'll see is David comes on the scene, and David actually conquers the rest of the land that really Joshua was supposed to conquer, but he did not do it, because I don't know what happened between Joshua 12 and 13, but a lot of time has passed. And one of the things we saw as we've been tracking from Joshua 1 to Joshua 13 is Israel had an issue with cohabitation. They was just trying to fellowship, kick it with these people, when really they were supposed to drive them out and take over the land. And so God is coming to Joshua and like, I know you're in your 90s and you kind of want to chill, but there's still some assignments that you have yet to fulfill. And God's telling Joshua this because ultimately he's saying this is what you need to be doing. But we're going to see that Joshua does not fulfill it. And what actually happens is long down the line, David comes on the scene some 100 years later, and he actually is the one that conquers the land. Point number 2 is that your assignment will never lead you away from purpose. Your assignment will never lead you away from purpose. Again, we see that Joshua brings Israel to Canaan. God tells him to get rid of the children of, get rid of all the inhabitants of the land. A lot of those people were in idol worship. They were just doing all kinds of stuff. So God was like, I don't want that in the land. And so you're going to see, actually, if you keep reading your Bible, the reason David even had to deal with the giants, study your Bible. The reason David even had to deal with the giants was because Joshua did not drive out the inhabitants of the land. So Goliath was still in the land because he was a part of those giants that was actually supposed to be driven out of the land. And so because Joshua does not fulfill the assignment that God gave him, what happens is the children of Israel actually end up paying for it later on down the line. And so we'll see that David has to kill Goliath only because Joshua did not drive out. That's how important your purpose is, and that's how important the assignments that God gives you is. And so number 2, your assignment will never lead you away from purpose. Number 3, the third thing that God gave me just out of Joshua 13, 1 through 7 is God's promises are conditional, just as it was to Israel. The land, they were supposed to drive out the inhabitants. They don't do that. What happens is God raises up David down the land. David is actually the one that ends up driving out the rest of the inhabitants. And so again, God's promises are conditional, and a lot of times it ties into your obedience. And you guys have heard me say that word because that's something all through the Old Testament as you study. Obedience was a big issue. They were not obeying, and idol worship was super big back then, just as it is today. And so obedience was a big thing, and you'll see them constantly. God is speaking audibly. He's speaking through the man of God, woman of God, and it's like they just don't, they're not doing what God is saying. And so God's promises are conditional. So for all my people who are like, I'm just going to do what I want and God just going to bless. No, he's not. That's not biblical. So it's like God's promises are conditional. A lot of times it ties into your obedience. So whatever it is that God's promised you, you need to go back and seek God's direction as to what part do you play in that, if any, if he's going to give you specifics to go with that. We see that again in verses 1 through 7. It's like Israel had to have some setbacks. Why? Because when we're in Joshua 12, literally one chapter before, but yes, years have passed, they had just defeated the northern kings. And so it's like they had to have had some setbacks for God to now come on and sing in Joshua 13 and to tell Joshua, like, there's still some land that you ain't conquered. So we know in some way there was a diversion. Again, God's promises are conditioned. There is something else I put here in my notes is that many people don't fulfill purpose and assignments because of familiarity. And so I put that because to me what had to have happened, and again, I'm not taking anything out of context, it's in the text, between Joshua 12 and 13, they defeat the northern kingdoms, they defeat the southern, and then again, they have the east and west there, and then what happens is now we jump into Joshua 13, and God is saying, look, you haven't defeated all of the land, like you haven't driven out the inhabitants, so there had to be some kind of setback. What I'd like to say, again, not taking anything out of context, is there had to be some level of familiarity. Why? Because now you're still in the land with these people that God said drive out. And so many times people don't fulfill purpose and assignments because of familiarity. So a lot of times they just get comfortable, they get familiar in their relationship with God, and it's kind of like, I know you called me to do this, but I just don't see myself doing that. I don't know how it's going to come to pass. And so they just get comfortable and familiar. And so what happens is they go to work, they come home, they raise kids, they read their Bible like 5 minutes, they go to church, they come home, and there is like what I consider a cycle that goes on. And that cycle is they're disappointed, but it's like they keep in this cycle over and over and over again. And then it's like, I'm not fulfilled, I don't enjoy my life, and out of a place of familiarity, you're not fulfilling purpose, and you're in this what I consider never-ending cycle until you stop it. It's not that God's gonna come down from the heaven and stop your cycle. You really have to stop it, and you have to seek God as to what is purpose, and then your assignments. Because sometimes people are operating in purpose, but then they don't know the assignments that God is saying for them to do while in the earth. And so again, many people do not fulfill purpose and assignments because of familiarity. I'll give you a good example is one day I was in my room and my godson just walked in my room. 7-year-old, you guys know I have a 7-year-old godson, and he just walked in my room and he was just kind of like, "Hey, Miss Angela." I was like, "Bro, what are you doing?" And he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "No, what are you doing?" And I immediately realized, like, I was like, "Maurice, go out. I'm about to study it." So he was like, "Okay." And so he walked out. And then what immediately God began to deal with me, he was like, because he's familiar with you as his godmom. So it's easy for him to just come in and go out of my room. It's not a big deal for him. He don't see that as an issue. He comes in and then he goes out as my godson. He's familiar with me. And a lot of times that's how it is with our relationship with God. We get so familiar and so common with God that it's like God's trying to say, "Look, I know your capacity and you can handle more." And we're like, "Nah, I can't handle anything. I'm good right where I am. My plate is already full. I don't want no more." And God's like, "I created you. I know you can handle more. Here's some more assignments that I have for you." And you're like, "Nah, I'm good, God. I don't want nothing else." And I hear people say this all the time. "There's no way I can do that. There's no way I can start a business. There's no way I can do any," excuse me. They're like, "There's no way I can do any of that." And what I'm saying is, you didn't create you, so you can't tell you how much you can handle. God knows exactly how much you can handle. And so a lot of times what happens is God gives you purpose, and then attached to that purpose is, listen to me, multiple assignments. And God will keep adding on according to what he knows you can handle. And he created you, so he knows how much you can handle. So for all my people that are like, "I'm kind of maxed out," it's like, no, God knows how much you can handle. And so again, that's point number 3. And let me say point number 4. Disobedience delays what God has for you. We see that again in the same text, Joshua 13, 1-7. Disobedience delays what God has for you. They were supposed to come, Joshua and the children of Israel were supposed to come into this land. Look, God already promised you the land. I'm not saying how long it should take. I mean, that was a big, Canaan was big. And they were supposed to drive out these people in the land of Canaan. That was the will of God. God already promised them the land. He actually promised them the land back with Moses. And so here they are in this land, and God specifically gives them these instructions: drive it out. And then in specific parts of Canaan, he gives them specific tasks. So they're in Jericho. He's like, "Walk around the wall, blow the trumpet." He gives them these things. And so it's like, that's what they were supposed to be doing. I don't know how we get in Joshua 13 and they've been chilling, and obviously there are still some people in the land, because God actually talks about it like, "Hey, I'm going to drive the rest of these inhabitants out because y'all ain't doing it. Y'all ain't doing what I said." And so God's like, look, in verse 8, like, "I'm going to drive the rest of these jokers out because y'all not doing it. And so I've given you specific instructions and you're not fulfilling it." And so disobedience delays, and I would even say that sometimes it's not even just delays. It'll stop it. God will be like, "You know what? Okay, till you get in line, I'm not finna do it." And so disobedience, it can delay what God has for you. And sometimes he can even stop it, because God will just step back and be like, "Hey, when you want to do what I've called you to do, when you want to get in alignment." And let me say this. Laziness is an enemy to purpose. For all my procrastinating people, procrastination and laziness is an enemy to purpose, because what God created you to do is specifically for you to do. And so for all my people who keep putting stuff off, like, "I just can't do that. I'm not writing no book. I'm not doing any of that. That's just not in me." It's like procrastination and laziness is the enemy to purpose and the enemy to assignments. If God has called you to do something, God knows that you can do it. And if God has put it in you, I don't care. I get people that hit me up all the time that are like, "How did you write a book? I want to write a book." I'm like, anybody can write a book. Anybody can write a book. It's true. I don't have no special powers. Anybody can write a book, but you can't be procrastinating and you can't be lazy, because you ain't gonna write it. Your book gonna be like 15 years overdue. That book gonna That book should have been there 10 years ago, and you still like one chapter, one page at a time. No, that book gonna be another 20 years, because laziness and procrastination are an enemy to purpose and assignments. And so if you struggle with that, you're gonna have and I get it, because at one point I really struggled with that. God was like, you should be writing books. There's books I put in. I was like, I don't have the time. I don't know how I'm gonna write a book. I am busy. At that time I was working. I had all this stuff. I'm like, how am I gonna write a book? I don't even know. And one day, and let me say this for my busy people, because this will help you if God's called you to write a book. One day, I was talking to my friend, and she was like, why don't you use your phone? I was like, for what? She was like, to start writing your book. I was like, I can't write no book on a phone. She was like, yes, you can. And listen to me. It was God. I started writing my book literally on my phone in my notepad. As God was giving me stuff, as I was thinking about stuff, I started writing it. Before I knew it, I had all of these pages in my notepad. I literally just transferred them over to a Word document, did spell check, edited, and my whole book was written in a matter of like 2 months. And so for all of my people who are busy and God's called you to write a book and you just like, no, I just can't, I ain't got the time, there is always a way. And so literally that's how I wrote my book. And so again, excuses, laziness, procrastination is an enemy to purpose. And so if you struggle with that, man, you got to ask God to help you and ask Holy Spirit to help you with that, because that's not the will of God. And you're not going to be able to fulfill purpose and assignments with complaining and being like, I just can't do it. I don't know how I can do it. I can't take no more. No, you're going to be just like Joshua in this text. In Joshua 13 here, you're going to be 90 and God going to be like, you have not done all that I have called you to do. And so really what God was trying to be merciful to Joshua, but really what he was saying is he was rebuking Joshua. Like, I don't care about you. This is my version of this. God was like, I don't care about you being in your 90s. I don't care about you being 90 something. He's like, look, you ain't done all of what I've called you to do. And so just because you in your 90s, you still need to fulfill some of the assignments that I have given you to do. And so that's my version of what God was doing. He was giving him a firm rebuke. Like, I don't care about you in this land, and you chilling, you got your feet up in your recliner because you old. He's like, you still have some assignments to do. And so, yeah, Dion, get on the book, man. I get it. And so what happens is God is really pushing Joshua. He's like, there's still more in you to do. And I will say this, man. I love the fact that God knows our capacity. Why do I use that word? Because often we think, I like to use the cereal box analogy. I was using it with a friend last night. I was telling him, like, often we are in like the small cereal box, and it's like we have maxed out in that. Y'all know, if you eat cereal, you know what I'm talking about. That little small cereal box that you get and you kind of like, why did I get this box? I love cereal. I should have got the big box. And so what happens is, we're in that little cereal box, right? And we have maxed out in that cereal box, and we like, cool, this is as much as I can do. I'm already tired. It's like, God, thank you for the grace to do that. And God, like, what? If you don't get out of that small box, I've called you to be in that 36-ounce box. So the pressure you're feeling is because you're in a too little box. You need to get in a bigger box so you have room to grow. And God's like, because there's more in you, and you're in this little bitty box. So yeah, you feel the pressure because you're rubbing up against the sides. When God's like, stop being lazy, get out of that little box and get in this 36-ounce. You guys know I like analogies. Get in this 36-ounce box that I've called you to get in, because I know your capacity and you can handle more. Let's go to verse 8 real quick. Verse 8 says, half of the tribe of Manasseh and the tribes of Reuben and Gad had already received their grants of the land on the east side of Jordan, for Moses, the servant of the Lord, had previously assigned them this land. And so what happens in verse 8 is that the land was assigned to the tribes, but it can only come through the assignment of Moses. And so here God is bringing Moses back up, and he's saying, look, the parts of the land was assigned to certain tribes of Israel, but that can only come through the assignment of Moses. So Moses We're in Joshua 13, Angela. And so again, it can only come through Moses. And so let me say this as point number 5, is your purpose and each assignment needs to be fulfilled because it affects others. Moses didn't do what he was supposed to do. And so now, and I'm going to say that because that's in the Bible. Moses was supposed, read your Bible. He was not just the deliverer. He was supposed to deliver them from Egypt. Yes. And so he fulfilled that. And he didn't even fulfill that wholeheartedly. It was kind of like, I really don't want to go. But hey, if you're telling me to go, I'll go. And so I'll give him that for going. But then he was supposed to take them through the wilderness and then go straight into the land of Canaan. And so he didn't fulfill that. The children of Israel were complaining. There's a lot going on. We went through that. And so now him not doing the assignment that God called him to do affected now Joshua. And now God is like, Joshua, you ain't even did all of what I told you to do. And so again, your assignment, not fulfilling your purpose and not fulfilling your assignments affects others, and you need to know that, especially for people who are like, oh, I'm just doing me. I'm just living my life. It's like, no, what you're doing is affecting others. And so a lot of times what you don't do, it's like now God puts that on your children to do, or he raises up somebody else that has to do that as well. Let's jump down to verses 9 through 13. And this is just talking about the territory. And so actually I'm going to skip 9 through and I'm going to jump over because there's something I want to talk about specifically. Verse 13, it says, but Israel, so 9 through 12 is just talking about the different lands and it being divided. But verse 13 says, but the Israelites failed. See, y'all thought I was making this up. Listen to the Bible because we trust Bible. It says, but the Israelites failed to drive out the people of Geshur and Makah, so they continued to live amongst the Israelites to this day. And he's talking about the day that they've written this part of the Bible. And so, okay, here we are. It's like God gave him this, he gave Joshua a purpose, and then attached to that purpose were assignments that he was supposed to do with the children of Israel. We know they didn't fulfill that one because God starts Joshua 13 off by saying, Joshua, there's still a lot of the land that you ain't even conquered. Now in verse 13, he says, part of the assignment was also to drive out the rest of these people. So not only did you not conquer the land, you also did not drive out the rest of the inhabitants. And so, I just believe that they got complacent. I believe that one of the things I felt like the children of Israel really struggled with was just being 100% obedient. It's like they would constantly partially obey. And it's like, no, God just wants you to just do what he's saying for you to do. And so it's like, number 6, one of the points I put is God is not into cohabitation. God is not into, and I'm not talking about married people, so I'm not talking about that. God is not into cohabitation when he gives you specific instructions. So what am I saying? A lot of times it's like we want to obey God, but it's like I want to obey God with this. No, God is not into cohabitation when it comes to when he gives you specific assignments. It's like if he's telling you to do this, it's not like I'll do it when this person does it. For married people, it's not like, oh, I'll do this when my husband does it. No, it don't work like that. If God's giving you a specific assignment, it's like you need to talk. You guys need to get on one accord, but he holds you accountable for the assignment that ultimately he has given you. And a lot of times what happens is this cohabitation. It's like we're like, I want to do it, but I'll do it with this. Or it's like, I'll do this, but with this. And God like, no, I'm not telling you to do it with this. I'm telling you to do what it is that I've called you to do. Your specific purpose and these specific assignments I'm giving you, I need you to do that. And you got to stop making excuses, and you got to stop just coming up with all these things as to why you're not doing what it is that God's called you to do. There is so much in a lot of people. I said this on my video last week. There are too many people in the grave that were supposed to be billionaires. There are too many people in the grave that were supposed to write books. Why? Because time stops for no man. So when you procrastinate, why I said it's the enemy of purpose and laziness is the enemy of purpose and assignments is because the more you procrastinate, time stops for no man. And so the Bible even talks about like time just keeps going. And we know it. I'm 37. I remember when I was 16 and I just moved to Dallas. I'm 36. I didn't give myself extra year. But I remember when I had just moved to Dallas, and I remember it like it was yesterday. That was 20 something years ago. And so it's like time just keeps going. So the more you procrastinate, the more you push stuff off, and you like, I'll start that business next year. I'll do it, blah, blah, blah. I'll do it all. I'll do it this. No, what happens is it's like God, it's like that time just starts passing. And that's why we see in Joshua 13 right now, it's like now Joshua's 90. When he was like in his 20s, like he now is 90. It's been some 70 years. And God is like, look, bro, you still ain't did the rest of what I've told you to do. And that, I don't like just talking the Bible just to talk. It applies to us so much. It's like a lot of us procrastinate. A lot of us push stuff off. God is like, I'm telling you, do this now. I remember when God told me to write my book, I was so busy. And God was like, you need to write this book. Now, I knew I was supposed to write a book like some 5 years later. I just kept pushing it on. And I remember it was like God was screaming, write the book now. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to write this book. And I know why God was saying it, because he was like, it's needed now. Stop procrastinating and do what it is that I'm telling you to do. So I'm giving you personal experience. I know what it's like to push stuff off. And I want to say, don't do it. There's a specific purpose as to why God put you in this earth. And there are specific assignments that God has for you. Again, that's why I said hashtag I was born for this. You were born for a specific purpose. You were born for many assignments that are attached to your purpose, and you need to seek God as to what that is. And once God reveals it, because a lot of people know their purpose, you need to go 1,000 for that. Stop going 60%, stop going 80%, stop going 85%. No, like you need to go 1,000. And I'm not saying it's gonna be easy. I'm not saying, like what I said with purpose is weighty. It's fulfillment. It's joy, it's pain, it's burdensome, it's weighty at times, but you need to go 1,000%, and we can't do this like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's like go 1,000%. I said this to someone last night, and I really believe it. When God is giving you a purpose, he is giving you grace to fulfill that purpose. What am I saying? He's giving you the power to be able to fulfill that purpose. And so I don't care how weighty it gets, it'll never break you. It's the cross that you're supposed to bear. It'll never break you. It may get super weighty and you kind of like, oh, how in the world? It may be burdensome because God's calling you to intercede for people, and you can't sleep. You know, it may be weighty, but it will never break you, because when God has given you a purpose and he's giving you assignments that attach to that purpose, it'll never break you. And I've seen this with, of course, because I'm called to preach, I study preachers, especially busy preachers, things like that. How do you balance it? What do you do? It never breaks you. I believe that the breaking comes when we get outside of the will of God, when we start doing stuff that God ain't called us to do. Now, you dibble dabbling in a lot of areas that God ain't called you to do. But when God has called you to do something, God is giving you the grace to do it. Joshua had the grace to not only take the children of Israel into the land, but to do all of the assignments that God had for him to do. Now, whether he did it or not was his choice. God gave him free will, but he had the grace to be able to do it. Now, if he didn't do it because now he's 90, then it's like that was his choice, but he had the grace to be able to do it. And I really believe that what happened was that cohabitation started playing a part with them. And so now they're living with giants that they were supposed to drive out. They're living with people that, now that's a word for somebody. Anyways, they're living with folks that they were supposed to drive out, that they were supposed to cut out. But it's like they're not doing it. They're just chilling with them. And a lot of times that's what happens, is that God is saying, this is what I want you to do. This is what I've attached to that. And a lot of times we're just like, I just don't know how I'm going to do it. And before we know it, all of this time has passed, because that's what happens with Joshua. All of this time has passed, but Joshua was literally born for this reason. What am I saying? I'm saying the same thing to you. There's a specific reason why God put you in this earth. There's a specific reason why God put you in this earth. You need to get in alignment with whatever that is that God put you. And it's more than just chilling. It's more than just watching Netflix. And let me say this, not everybody's called to the pulpit, so I'm not pushing pushing everybody to preach and teach and all of that. But I'm saying, like, you have to seek God. You need to start praying and asking God, what is my purpose? Why did you create me? Once you know that, you need to get in alignment with that 1,000%. And now as God brings assignments, and I'll tell you this, I always know when I'm supposed to do something. People hit me up like, hey, I want you to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nah, I'm not supposed to do that. How do I know? It's easy, because it's like, it has to tie into my purpose. So if you're like, hey, I want you to come down to the club and speak on, but I'm like, nah, that ain't, God ain't calling Angela McGill to do that. Why? Because I know my purpose. And so whatever you're asking me to do, it needs to tie into my purpose. Those assignments need to tie into my purpose. So don't come asking me to go down to something. I'm gonna be like, nah, that don't really line up with my purpose, so I'm not gonna do it. And it's that easy. When you know your purpose, it's that easy that when assignments start coming, things that God wants you to do, it has to line very in a line. It has to line up with your purpose. When it doesn't, it's easy to turn stuff down, because people are gonna pressure you to want to do a lot of stuff. They're gonna see you, they're gonna be like, hey, I want you to do this. Hey, can you come do this? Hey, and when you start getting super weighty and weighed down, you have to go back and check and see, is this what I was supposed to be doing, or am I doing it just because people want me to do it? I don't do anything just because people want me to do it. I do what I'm supposed to be doing in this earth. Why? Because I have the grace to be able to do it. So just because you want me to do something, that don't mean I'm gonna do it. It's like, I know that I have the grace to do what God has assigned Angela to do. And the same thing I would say to you is, you have the grace to do everything that God has called you to do. So if he puts something in your spirit, if he was impressing something upon your heart, yes, Dion, learn to say no. Powerful word, powerful one word that can save many lives. You know, it's like, if God put you in this earth, he has given you grace to do every single thing that he has called you to do. When you start getting out of that, almost look like when you guys are driving on the highway and you see that yellow line. God has given you the grace to do everything you're assigned to do. When you start dabbling and stuff because people want you to do it, then what happens is you cross over that yellow line and you hear them little brrrr. That's how you know you're out of alignment, and you need to get right on back on that highway and get on the path that God has for you. Again, we were all born for a specific reason. We all have specific assignments that are attached to our purpose. A lot of unfulfillment comes because we're not in alignment with purpose. We're not in alignment with the assignments that God has for us. And so if you are on this broadcast, I want to say this, because people get off and they're like, I don't believe that word was for me. No, it is. You were born for this. There is a specific reason that God put you in this earth, and you need to seek God as to what it is. If you know what it is, I am your encourager this morning to say, man, go 1,000% with it. If it's a book, write it. If it's a business, start it. Whatever it is that God has given you, if it's an assignment that's attached to your purpose, do it. And whatever you know God is saying not to do, get away from it. I don't care who it is that's telling you to do it. Get away from it, because you don't have the grace to do stuff that God has not called you to do. A lot of things that I see that a lot of times people struggle with is they take too much on that God is not saying to take on. So it's like they all over the place doing all this stuff, and it's like, if God ain't called you to do that, man, don't do it. You were born for a specific reason, and there are specific assignments that are attached to your purpose, and that's what you were born to do. And when you know that, man, you got to go 1,000% in what God has called you to do, and stay away from stuff just because people want to put it on you to do. Let me say this, point number 7. Is that we have to be in a place that as we fulfill purpose, the assignments God gives us, that if we don't get what everyone else is getting, we are still satisfied and content. Why am I saying that with God all by himself? Because if you read on in this, in verse 14, it talks about that the Levites didn't get any inheritance in the land. Now the Levites, I'm not even going to go into the priests, but in Joshua 13 verse 14, it talks about how the Levites didn't get anything. They didn't get any inheritance of the land. There was no physical anything the Levites got. That actually tied back into Deuteronomy 18, so I'm not going to get into that. But let me say, why is that significant? Because God said for the Levites, their inheritance was God himself. Now you read that and you're like, I mean, why didn't they get any land? They didn't need any land. Their inheritance was God all by himself. And so let me say that it's like you have to be okay with whatever God gives you according to your assignment in your purpose, and then the assignments, like whatever blessings he gives you, whatever he says, hey, this is what the weight that comes, you got to be okay with that, man. A lot of what I see that people struggle with is because they're too busy looking. Let's use the highway as an example. They're too busy looking at the other side of the highway. They're too busy looking at the other side of the highway. What am I saying is they're driving on their side, and then it's like, brrr. Why? Because you look up, you know this. I live in the city, so I live in Dallas. It's like nothing frustrates me more than driving on the highway, and I'm like, man, why did traffic slow down? And you guys know where I'm going. I'm like, why is it so slow? I don't see nothing. And then you get up there, and it's like someone on the side of the road that's changing their flat tire. And why did the traffic stop? Because everyone is slowing down to look at this man change his flat tire. And then now it's affecting all of the traffic in Dallas on 35, on 75. And we're going super slow because a lot of people are being nosy, stopping to look at this man change his flat tire. That's the way I believe it is with purpose and assignments. A lot of times we're on the highway, and it's like God is giving you a purpose. He's giving you assignments. But a lot of times what's happening is we're busy looking at everybody else. And so what happens is we slow down, and then we're on that highway. We hitting them bumps. And it's because we're looking at what everyone else is doing. Put you some blinders on, man, in this season. Stop looking at what everyone else is doing and get focused on what God is saying for you to do. I don't have time to be judging and looking at I don't have my purpose and assignment is so great. I don't have time to be looking at what you're doing. I'm trying to do all that God's called Angela to do. That in itself is weighty. So I don't have time to be like, why aren't they doing? I don't have that kind of time. I don't know how people have that kind of time. Because when you get in alignment with your purpose and the assignments that God begins to give you, you don't have time really to focus on what everybody else is doing, judging everybody. I don't have that kind of time. I'm too busy trying to run hard and do what God has called Angela McGill to do. I don't have time to focus on everybody else and what they got doing. Now, if God tells me to help, I'm going to help, but I don't have time to be like, why aren't you? I don't have that kind of time. Just like when I'm driving on that highway, I don't have the time to stop and see you changing your tire. That has nothing to do with me. I'm trying to get to where I'm supposed to be going. I don't have time to slow down and be like, I can't believe he changing his tire and he using this. You know, I don't know anything about cars. But I can't believe he using this tool. I don't have that kind of time. I'm trying to, get to my destination. And so it's the same thing I want to encourage you this morning is that you were born for a specific reason. There's a reason why God put you in this earth. You were born for it, man. Go 1,000%. And if God is trying to expand you, let God expand you this morning. Some of you just need to repent. You've been bucking against what God is trying. I was messing with a good friend yesterday. We was at this group, and I had mentioned somebody mentioned the word pastor, and he was like, oh, no. And I was like, I just laughed because I feel like that's how we are. If God says something that's big, it's like, oh, no, I don't want that. Why? Because we automatically look at it. It's like, no, I don't want that. But it's like, wow, because the capacity of that is large. But if God is calling you to whatever he's calling you to, he knows what is in you. He created you. So from the inside out, he knows what your capacity is, and he knows when you're going to be ready for it, and he knows that if he called you to it, you can do it. So this morning, I want to encourage you guys that Joshua 13 is where we were this morning. You were born for this. I want to say a prayer today, specifically over this week, and for those that get on this broadcast. Man, God, I thank you this morning. You are an amazing Father. I thank you that you're Abba, God, to us. There is nobody like you, God. No one compares to you, God. You are just that great, just that amazing. Father, I thank you this morning that we were born for a specific reason, for a specific purpose. And so, Father, I pray that everyone that gets on this broadcast will know, Father, what their purpose purpose is. If there are people that get on here who already know their purpose, God, and you're taking them deeper, God, you're expanding them more, may you continue to do it, and may they not buck against it, God. May we all be open to whatever it is that you're saying, God. If it's deeper, if it's wider, if it's scarier, God, may we have the courage to be open to wherever you want to take us and whatever you want to do. Why? Because you created us. And so, Father, this morning we say, like David, God, that we trust you with all of our hearts, our minds, our souls, God. We trust that you created us, that you know the reason why you created us. And this morning I pray, not only what I pray for myself, but I pray for those that are on here, that God, we just surrender, God. We surrender to whatever you want to do. If you want us to write the book, God, we're going to do it. We're going to stop procrastinating. If you want us to start the business, we're going to do it. We're going to stop procrastinating. If you want to take us deeper, God, if you're calling us to whatever, God, it's like we're going to do it. We just surrender to whatever it is that you want to do. I pray that as everyone watches this broadcast, God, that this week will be a week of encouragement, a week of strength. May this week be a week where new revelations come, God, according to their assignments, according to their purpose, God. May someone, God, somebody's, God, not procrastinate anymore, not be lazy anymore, and just do what it is that you're calling them to do. Father, we thank you that this is the day that you have made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. You guys have an amazing week. Catch you later. Peace.